We'd like to invite Mrs. Khushbu Sundar, Vice President, BJP Tamil Nadu, to join us on the stage. We'd like to request Mr. Gopi Rao to felicitate Dr. J. Geeta Reddy and welcome her. We'd like to invite our next guest of honor, Mr. Ajay Mishra, Colonel Major General Ajay Mishra, General Officer Commanding Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, to join us on the stage. Mr. Peter Schwarzenberg, former member of Board of Management, BMW Global, to join us on the stage. Mrs. Uma Chigurupati, Executive Director, Granules India. Mr. Surender Reddy, Chairman, Hyderabad Race Club and a former Member of Parliament, to join us on the stage. Ms. Mihika Bajaj Dagubati, Founder, Mudita. Dr. Preeti Reddy, Vice Chairman, Mallareddy Health City, to join us on the stage, please.
Ladies and gentlemen.
We'd like our guests to pose for a group picture, please.
As we continue this beautiful evening, it's time to spotlight someone extraordinary. Our next speaker is someone who truly needs no introduction, an actress, a change maker, and a woman whose presence itself carries strength and purpose. Yet, I take this opportunity with pride because beyond the spotlight, she's the co-founder of Democratic Sangha, a voice of compassion, dignity, and real change in society. Please join me in welcoming the incredibly inspiring Miss Regina Cassandra. You're right here.
Change doesn't always arrive loudly, and change is not easy. Sometimes it begins as a quiet spark, a single voice, a brave choice, a moment that shifts something deep within us. Tonight, in this very room, I see that spark multiplied. A constellation of people who carry the possibility of change. Good evening, everybody. I am Regina Cassandra, the co-founder of Democratic Sangha. A gathering that brings together change makers, dreamers, thinkers, and doers who believe that democracy is not merely a structure, but a living, breathing practice of compassion, courage, and collective responsibility. When we envisioned Democratic Sangha, the intention was simple, yet deeply powerful: to build a space where leadership is not defined by titles, but by conscience, where citizenship is active, and where every individual feels empowered to shape a more inclusive India. Today, standing here, among so many inspiring individuals, I feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude and possibility. Democratic Sangha was built on the belief that democracy thrives when its people do. Our work spans across women's leadership, that's the Rural Women's Leadership Program, youth leadership, that's the Young Leaders for Social Change, elections and voting, and a non-partisan leadership training. For me personally, the Young Leaders for Social Change program has been one of the most transformative parts of our journey. Watching young minds question power structures, reflect deeply on inequality, engage with rural communities, and step into their own leadership. Reminding us that India's future is not just bright, it is awake. Change does not begin in institutions. It begins in people. And people in rooms like this. My hope is that tonight becomes more than an event, that it becomes a spark for deeper dialogue, braver decisions, and a more compassionate democracy. Our esteemed dignitaries, our sponsors, our supporters, and our growing community, thank you so much. Thank you for showing up today. Thank you for showing up for each other. And thank you for showing up for change. Welcome once again to the Democratic Sangha Annual Forum. Let us make this evening unforgettable. Thank you.
And thank you once again, Regina Cassandra.
Thank you, one and all. I'd like to thank all the panelists for making time to join us today. Before we begin, let me briefly outline what we do at Policies of Thought. So today, panel is hosted by Policies of Thought. We are an unconventional think tank based out of Hyderabad. We research large-scale societal issues through a policy lens and draft practical long-term policy solutions that can one day be made into an act. Our team of lawyers and policy researchers analyze, understand, and investigate these challenges by engaging directly with the stakeholders involved. We also publish our research to educate the wider public through our social media platforms, thus creating awareness about how effective policy interventions can address real-world problems. So, because we are running out of time, let me quickly jump into today's panel. So, ma'am, I'd like to start with you. Ma'am, you've been an MP, a union minister, and have had a tremendous career in politics. I'd like your take on women's reservation. And my question to you is, the Women's Reservation Act 2023, which has been passed, mandates 33% reservation for women in the Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Why do you think it is important that we do this? And what kind of positive change are you expecting when this is implemented? Also, do you think linking it to the census and delimitation process without implementing it now is fair?
Yeah, thank you for resonating what women in politics and these aspiring young ladies who today are filing for their Sarpanch elections. It's a beginning, and that's at the grassroots. So I think we face a tremendous challenge. Why do we need the women's point of view in progress and development? Because there is always a different opinion about what it is. The Congress party had initiated what is known as gender budgeting, where an imaginary question was asked, a question was asked to both men and women, where they were asked that if we gave you a road, an imaginary road, where would you like it to lead from and to? There was no right or wrong answer in that. The men said that we wanted to the agricultural markets and we wanted to the local pubs. The women said we wanted to go to the temples as well as schools. So unless you get both the gender balances, there is going to be no level playing field in our society. Late Rajiv Gandhi ji had recognized the need, and I think with a smile he signed the paper without even imagining the kind of ripple effect it will have. So 33% reservation, and in some states it's gone to 50%. So women like these young women who came and spoke so confidently, got the entry point into politics, into decision making, into empowering their own villages and their own lives. And I think that is a tremendous leap. Now many people can say, why do women, maybe women like us, why do we need a reservation? I didn't. I was fortunate that I could contest in elections on a general seat where I contested against men. There were 6, 7 men and I was the only woman fighting in that election. But it's not always easy. You need to give that entry point. And I'm very optimistic. Men have seen what it did to women in reservations at the local body elections. And that's why they're not giving it to us in Parliament today. We have the male bonding cutting across party lines who do not want women out there at 33%, because at one point in life, in future, the men are going to need 33% reservation in Parliament. That's going to happen.
That was wonderful, ma'am. So, actually, it was quite impressive to see, these women come and actually speak. But that will bring me up to my follow-up question, where reservation gives women a seat. How do we ensure they also get a voice? I'd want to know from your experience, what are the challenges women face in today's politics?
They're the same die-hard traditional challenges where men think we are part of their perks or their entertainment. They believe that women should not be heard and should only be seen for their aesthetic reasons. And it's sad. It's sad because sometimes we feel as women in politics that we are running on a treadmill, running all the time but reaching nowhere. And that is the sad truth even today. The percentages are minimal, what has increased in Parliament in all these years of fighting for empowerment. And tickets are still distributed in all political parties as the winning seat is for the men. The questionable ones can be given to the communities and caste systems that we need. And the ones where you're not going to win, give it to the women. And since we have to give it to them, give them a seat or two so that, it doesn't matter. And then tomorrow they'll say, see, we gave the women tickets, but they lost. So hearing a woman's voice also needs funding. Hugely expensive elections. It doesn't matter what the election commission says, they're becoming less and less relevant. But we've got to have funding for women's reservation and seats. And in order to contest an election, a man will bring some remote nephew or some roadside Romeo, but won't bring his wife. And it gets more and more complex as we go. So I have full marks to Kiran Shaw Mazumdar, a woman I admire greatly, who last time in Karnataka elections got together some industrialists and people, influencers like you, who started funding women candidates. And I think that's vital. Until you have the necessary numbers, this is 75 years after independence. And in some ways, India was far more progressive when our constitutional makers in the constituent assemblies gave us a voice and said we will vote from day one. Countries like US didn't. They voted much later. The women got the franchise much later compared to India. Mahatma Gandhi's freedom movement had women involved. Constituent Assembly had women who gave their dominant voices there, Sarojini Naidu and such like, who actually had a role. And it's ironic that today we diminish further than to progress. So we need to work. It's of urgent importance. And I must congratulate the Democratic Sangha and Chaitanya that he's actually working at the grassroots level. Those two women who came up and spoke, they are the ones who are going to bring about the change. We have to do it.
Amazing, ma'am. Also, when women look up to people like you, I think that will also be like a great inspiration to a lot of people. And one last thing on that topic, ma'am. On a lighter note, if you were to design a master class called Politics for Women, what would the first chapter be?
That you are equal. To encourage women to believe that they are equal. When I brought in the Domestic Violence Act as the union minister, the biggest challenge was educating my women that your husband does not have the right or the authority to slap you around and to marginalize you. So I look up to these women, truly. Many people ask me, who's your role model and blah. There are many achievers who I look up to, but I think the ordinary Indian woman who faces an extraordinary stress in her life, who works, who manages her family budget, empowers herself to look after the health of her children, ensures that the household runs and gets no recognition. They truly inspire me because every day I look at them and say, my God, if they can do it, I have to do it because I have so many privileges. I'm educated, I have exposure, I have advantages. And if I sit back and say, I can't do this, then I'm a bigger failure than what I thought I was. So these women inspire. If I run a woman's thing, I tell the women, you are empowered by the Constitution. You don't need anybody's permission or anything. And you will face flack. Women are trolled, women are negated, women are everything. Every time someone does that, your spine gets stronger. Believe in yourself. Thank you.
Yes, sir, please.
Yes.
That's a very powerful message, ma'am. Thank you so much. Can you switch on sir's mic? Suresh Reddy sir's mic. Sir, please.
Yeah, just to continue from where Renuka ji left, the way Monica from Karimnagar spoke, it was so reassuring at a time when the Women's Reservation Bill has just been passed in Parliament and when there were certain people who were skeptical of how the reservation would continue. But in my own experience, over the last 30 years, I've seen how women leadership has evolved over a period of time. A lady like Monica, 20, 30 years ago, got elected as a sarpanch, but was purely ceremonial. Yes. She never functioned as a sarpanch. It was only the husband or the son who took over. But today, ladies like Monica, they are so confident. They're not only confident of their leadership, but they're also confident of delivering, and they have delivered. We have seen instances of social change has happened in villages wherever women leadership evolved. So I think India has come to a stage where women reservation definitely will be accepted, will be implemented, and you'll have sizable number of dynamic ladies like Renika to hardworking Monicas in Parliament and assemblies. Thank you.
True, sir. To add one, So to add a fact to that, actually we are somewhere around 12%, 10 to 12% now of women's representation in Lok Sabha. And countries like Rwanda have around 50%.
Critical mass.
So it's just a fact that I wanted to throw in there. So that brings me to my next question to you, sir, Suresh Reddy Garu. Sir, you've had a long tenure in politics now, won multiple times as an MLA. You've been the Honorable Speaker of AP's Legislative Assembly, but also you've entered politics at a relatively young age. So I'd like your opinion on this next question. India has one of the youngest populations in the world, yet youth participation in politics, formal politics, remains limited. Should political parties have policy fellowships, policy exposure programs, and candidate training programs to identify, nurture young talent and give credible candidates opportunities from this talent pool?
Yes, totally agree. Well, like you said, I started young. But today when you look at the leadership, now when you talk of youth participation in politics, let it not be limited how well they are represented in the legislative assemblies or in parliament. Leadership can happen anyway. Leadership can happen at the Gram Panchayat level. Leadership can also happen in a political party. Now, if you look at all political parties, all of us, we have various youth organizations where there's a great talent which is evolving. And across the nation, when you look at the local bodies, it is mostly represented by youth. But having said that, what is the incentive for youth to come into public life? Now, that's a big question. Of course, the party leaderships, like every party having a young leadership, definitely would inspire, number one. Number two, to attract younger people to serve the nation, to serve the region. We do not have policies, but what we can look at is, now today, for example, to contest an election, you have the age of 25. But I think we are matured enough, we have evolved over a period of time. Today, a youngster of, say, 21 or 22, I think is confident enough to contest and enter Lok Sabha or Rajya Sabha. So in my belief, such initiatives, I'm sure, would definitely bring in a lot of youth into public life. But having said that, then the question comes, politics, all said and done, is very, very expensive. Money matters come in a big way. So apart from bringing in youth, there should be other administrative changes which would eventually attract a lot of youth to enter mainstream politics.
True, sir. That's a great insight. And what do you think, is like one misconception that people have? Can you hear me? So what is one misconception that people have about the daily life of an MP?
That is a pleasure.
Daily life of an MP.
Life of a MP.
That we're really.
Well, life of a MP, what they see in television, the way things are happening in Parliament, probably the perception could be different. But having said that, a politician is definitely a reflective of the society. So when you point a finger at the politician, we should also realize that what we are is what is reflected there. Yeah. But having said that, the people's perception of a MP is definitely coming down for the fundamental reason is the working hours of Parliament and legislature is coming down. Now, unless Parliament and legislative assemblies function, then definitely there could be a change or in the perception of the people. So this is what I look at.
Thank you, sir. That's some great insight. So that brings me to my next question. I'd like to talk to PTR sir. Sir is with us on a video call. So PTR sir, can you hear me, sir? So sir is also the IT Minister of Tamil Nadu, and he's here with us today for the panel. Sir, so my question to you is about federal structure and federal powers to the state. So you've been quite vocal about this issue, which is regarding federal powers of states in India. My question to you is, India's constitution speaks about cooperative federalism, but in practice, states often complain about central overreach in many issues, especially when the ruling party in the state is not the same as the center. Should states be granted more federal powers in our country? And why do you think it is needed now?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I can hear you. Can you
Okay, perfect,
hear me, sir?
perfect. Yeah, I can hear you. First, thank you for inviting me, and second, apologies for not being able to make it there in person. Let me say very quickly 5 or 6 things. One, the Constitution was more of a vision document or a wish list in many ways, because this notion of union of states in 1950 preceded the actual creation of the states in 1952. It is, in fact, the most centralized constitution of any large democracy, in fact, of most democracies. Maybe rightfully so at the time, because they thought they were creating a country that, was created politically out of lands that had been inhabited for thousands of years with various cultures and various histories. And so they needed to have a very powerful center. This has been compounded over the years by the dominance of single party rule when there has been overwhelming majorities in the parliament and in many of the states, you have started to see a lot more kind of aggressive centralization. And I would say what we're seeing now in this regime is a particularly telling example where, on the one hand, they're aggressively, massively centralizing all control through financially, cesses, legislatively through legislating into state subjects, and then in the case of governors, thwarting the will of the legislature, sometimes not signing unanimously passed bills and holding them for years indefinitely. So it is already a very weak federal structure. And in the sense that what we know from around the world, governance is usually best when the accountability is high and when the governed or elected are close to the, or electors are close to the elected. So you'll find greater accountability in city councils, for example, than you will in state assemblies, than you will in the parliaments, particularly because in India, the scales are so high. You have, a couple million people represented by one MP. You have, a few lakh people represented by one MLA. And especially after the anti-defection bill, most MLAs and MPs have to be very wary of having independent thought outside of the party's diktat. So you put all of this together and you effectively have a situation where the more you remove legislative and financial controls further away from the people, the less likely you are to get good outcomes. And that's particularly true in a place like India, where even the states vary a lot in financial outcomes, in health outcomes, in social development, in human development, in education, whatever you name it. So it's very unlikely that one size fits all policies, which is the kind of natural instinct of this government in Delhi, one nation, one X, is very unlikely that those are going to yield optimal results across the hugely diverse situations in the different states.
Thank you, sir. So, to add on to that, I have another add-on question to that. So, if you had to choose, what are the 3 top areas where states should have full federal autonomy today? And why would you think these 3 are the most important now?
Actually, I've been quite a vocal advocate that I think true federalism, when practiced for the scale and scope of our country and the diversity of outcomes, should basically be upside down. That is, accept foreign policy, defense, currency stability, international trade, interstate commerce, things that we can all agree are not dependent on where you live in the country, but should be a national policy. Except that all the rest should actually be at the state level, which is the case in many countries. I lived for 20 years in the US. My village or my town has its own police force, has its own school board, sets its own kind of store opening hours. My county sets the taxes on alcohol or the opening hours of the bars. My state sets its own income taxes. So, that's true in China as well. The city of Shanghai issues its own industrial permits, issues its own environmental clearances. Banking licenses only by province. There's no pan-China banking license for an international bank. So it's not uncommon to have well-decentralized models. And in fact, China's success story might be that despite having a centralized party, the actual governance has been decentralized a lot. But if you ask me for 3 specific things, I would say first, the abolition of the position of governor, which is a colonial hangover and is being used by this government, as is the fisc by this government, in unprecedentedly kind of extortionary political ways. The second is to get all those things that were moved out of the state list into the concurrent list, things like health, education, some parts of the environment, back into the state list. And these I'm saying more from a practical feasibility standpoint. And then the third would be to have fiscal freedom in terms of borrowing, debt, etc., unlike the current government for the first time using Article 293, Section B, and overriding the state legislature's FRBM equivalent acts and telling you how much you can borrow down to the last rupee. I used to be finance minister. I used to get a letter from some joint secretary in the Department of Finance in the government of India every year saying, you shall not borrow more than 93,684 crores, of which you shall borrow 75% of it or 80% of it in the first 3 months, something. This is not federalism. This is diktat from Delhi.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the insight on that. Sir, would you like to add on that?
Well, the Honorable Minister elaborated very well on the federal structure, but to the audience, to simplify it and put two issues which I would like to, which I feel would strengthen federalism. We know Article 1 says India is a union of states. So let's begin from there, and where do we stand today? Earlier, when states were doing their budgets, we had what we call it a planning commission, where the state chief minister and the ministers, they go to Delhi, they put before the commission, the planning commission, the different views, the need, the requirement, their foresight for the state, and then come back with a budget, what they call it, the state plan approval. Now, after planning commission has been dismantled, there was a promise that why should it be so centralized? Why should Delhi have all the powers? Why can't the states themselves do it? So a planning commission got dismantled, and then came the Niti Aayog. So Niti Aayog, we thought, would definitely solve this issue and strengthen federalism, where each state can evolve and dynamically work towards their goals and whatever strengths the state had. But unfortunately, Niti Aayog, in my view, has become toothless. It's more of more of an advisory thing. Another fundamental thing is, ultimately, it comes down to funds. So how do you devolve the funds? If 1 rupee is sent from, say, Hyderabad, it goes to Delhi. And how much does it come back? The saying goes that you send 1 rupee to Hyderabad, you get back only 40 paisa, 45 paisa. Now, who decides this? This is decided by the Finance Commission. Now, who gives the mandate to the Finance Commission? The Union Cabinet gives the mandate to Finance Commission. Now, you work on these lines, and this is how the devolution of funds happen. So, I've always been advocating that whenever the Finance Commission is constituted, before the Union Cabinet gives a mandate to the Finance Commission, let the Union Cabinet call all the political parties, regional parties, national parties. This is how ultimately devolution of funds happen. So it bogs down to how much funds you have, how much welfare, how much development. It all finally leads to finance. So what right do you have? So today, for example, there are apprehensions. Now I send 1 rupee from Hyderabad, I get back 50 paisa. Nitish ji from Bihar sends 1 rupee and he gets back 9 rupees. And now he promises the woman 10,000 rupees, all his election, everything is happening. I feel from my money sent from Hyderabad. So to get over this, ultimately I feel that the Finance Commission, which works on devolution of funds, should be guided not only through the Union Cabinet, but by the input taken by all political parties, especially regional parties. This, I think, would definitely bring in a lot of strength to various states.
That's a great point, sir. So, my next question is to Krishna Garu. Sir, you are a 2-time MP and you're also an educationalist. The next topic is about higher education skill gaps and rethinking the 4-year degree model. My question to you is, India spends heavily on scholarships and higher education subsidies, but many studies have shown a lot of skill gap in graduates today. As we know, a majority of our youth enrolls in a 4-year degree. With this in context, do you think India should rethink the 4-year degree model?
Yesterday, I was actually having a meeting with in the T-Hub with the HR and training and placement officers. They came across the country and they had a conference there, and fortunately I've been invited as a guest there. And the event happened outside in the sense in the lawns of the T-Hub. And when we are sitting there and we are able to look around the T-Hub, there's so much new construction that is happening and so much of city being already built. And that's why I told both the HRs of the companies and the TPOs, whatever is being built or already built, it's all because of you. Because every year, NASSCOM comes up with a survey data saying 50% of the Indian youth are unemployable. 70% of the Indian youth are, they're coming up with it for the last 25 years. But still, the city is growing. The IT in this city is growing. Not only in this city, in this country, it is growing for the last 25 years. So I think we kind of try to exaggerate it, saying we're not doing as well as we should be doing, but we are doing much better when compared to, if you talk about US, the number of engineers that they're producing, the number of doctors that they're producing, I don't think that it's the percentage-wise. I know the population is not there that much, but still, percentage-wise, they're not able to do it. India and China is doing fantastically well. It's just higher education has become a punching bag for everyone to say nothing is happening. But FDI is coming in, investments are coming in, economy is growing because of the service sector that is going up. Your healthcare is, the price point at which our healthcare is being done, I don't think nowhere in the world it can be done. If you ask Apollo, in 1980s they're doing the same open heart surgery for the same price, and they're doing the open heart surgery for the same price in 2025. It can be achieved only in India. If you ask Aravind Eye Hospital, the way they're doing it in the last, the number of operations that they're doing, the quality of operations with the number of less complications that they're doing, they're doing much better than the whole of UK combined. So, and as I said, services also we're doing very well. So I think instead of saying we're not doing great, I think there's room for improvement. First thing is Right to Education Act that's been pushed in 2009. It was pushed with a different idea. But what has happened was the governments are trying to say education is not my forte. They're saying let private do it. And in the higher education, it has gone to a next level. I run a university, but still I'm saying it. It has gone to a next level where the state universities has become literally defunct. The only thing that happens in most of the state universities is all the community wars, religious wars, elections, which HOD gets transferred to where, which vice chancellor, which caste vice chancellor will get which university. I think state universities are the place where I think most of the states needs to invest in, need to focus on. Central universities, if you see, most of them are doing pretty fine. And institutes like IITs, IIMs, they're doing phenomenally well. State universities are where I think we need to push and we need to spend. The spend, when you compare it with correct me if I'm wrong, the two senior members are sitting here, I think in the last 20, 25 years has been the percentage-wise, budget-wise, it's the same. I think it's most of the time it's being cut, and these days they're giving a loan to the institutes, universities also, instead of giving it as a grant. So I think there needs to be a rethinking. First, spend the money. Second, recruitment has to happen. Third, the way the state universities are running with less number of students, I don't think it works anywhere. The number should be more, reach should be more. Only once they get bigger, that's when I think they can actually make a lot of change in the society also, and they can actually involve with other stakeholders as well. If you stick with only this, I see Andhra University, I think have engineering student intake of 1,200. 1,200 students? Why? That's, I think it's the same thing with the Hyderabad state universities as well. Why do you have to do that? On the other side, you give fees reimbursement to institutes like me. Why do you have to do that? I feel 50% has to be done by the state governments, the governments per se, and maybe 40 to 50% should be done by the private players. But that balance is being off. That's the only problem I feel that is there. Otherwise, skill-wise and everything, with the amount that we're spending and the way that GER ratios are growing, gross enrollment ratios are growing for the last 15, 20 years, we've done phenomenally well. Don't take anything out of our higher education institutions, but spending-wise, these 2-3 issues are there, I think we'll overcome that.
Definitely, sir. I think investing a lot more into the education sector in the state universities is the need of the hour. And if we have to compete with countries like China, I think education is the key place I think we should focus more on.
If you have to compete with China, it's not just about the education-wise, it's about how much you spend on research. Research has been one that we have been lagging. I think 3 years back in the budget, our finance minister has announced that we'll spend 1 lakh crores on the research. They said private players will come in, and the last 3 years, not much have happened. And it won't show up. Immediately, it won't show up if you don't spend on research. But the gap will show up as the years progress. And when deep sea comes in, you know, these kind of products keep coming out. That's when the gap will slowly show up, and normal public won't observe it. Because as of now, when Suresh Reddy is just looking at his phone, most of, you know, the OS is being developed by US, either Apple or, you know, those things. You know, you don't, even if you use a computer, the Microsoft OS and everything is being developed by that. But if you go to other countries as our competitor China, you don't see any of these products that's being, so we can either stay as a services country or invest in the research, become a product company.
True. True, sir. Thank you for the insight. So we move on to the next segment, which is called Suggestion Picks. It's a light interactive segment where the audience members will pick chits containing policy statements, and you will decide whether to pass, reject, or modify that policy and pass. So, yeah.
What an amazing night, celebrating amazing people. I really want to congratulate and thank Chaitanya and Regina for inviting me here. Another reason to feel really happy that I actually met my school friend Priya after 30 years. Yeah, incredible. Put her in 2 pigtails in the uniform, she'll look exactly the same. Nothing's changed. But it's really amazing. I saw the ones that received the Changemaker Awards, and they say that if you want to see change, be the change. And it's really wonderful, Chaitanya and Regina, that you've actually acknowledged and appreciated the work that they've put in. And it also gives me immense hope to see that we do have hope for a stronger, more inclusive India. So it's really wonderful for all the ones present here, and for the ones that have played catalyst in acknowledging the work that has been put in. So congratulations to the Democratic Sangha. I feel really chuffed to be here. Thank you so very much for the invite.